Ithell Colquhoun, or Colquhoun, is one of my favourite artists. I love standing stones and I love trees, and she paints a lot of these. But she came from the Surrealist movement, so we're talking in the 1900s. And she had many different interests. She was very into magic and the occult. She was involved with various groups. I think she even met Crowley himself. I'll have to double check on that. She was very interested in W.B. Yeats's work, and he of course was a member of the Golden Dawn, a group that I think she tried to get into but didn't manage to get in. I think they had broken up by the time she was looking into all this. But she was very interested in all different people's kinds of writings on the magical world, and definitely Celtism as well. She was very interested in the landscape, and one of her books, The Living Stones, it talks all about her time in Cornwall when she was living there and going out and seeing all the standing stones in that area. But she writes in The Living Stones, "The life of a region depends ultimately on its geologic substratum, for this sets up a chain reaction which passes, determining their character in turn for its streams and wells, its vegetation and the animal life that feeds on this, and finally through the type of human being attracted to live there. In a profound sense, also the structure of its rocks gives rise to the psychic life of the land. Granite, serpentine, slate, sandstone, limestone, chalk, and the rest have each their special personality dependent on the age in which they were laid down, each being coexistent with a special phase of the earth spirit's manifestation." End quote. So she's talking here obviously about the spiritualism of the land, and what maybe today some people would say was Mother Gaia. But she believed that the standing stones had or held some kind of ancient wisdom tradition which has now been lost, and this was to do with how the people lived in the land, how the people worked with the land. We don't live in that kind of way anymore. It's like people have lost their connection with the land. So she was doing these paintings of standing stones with figures dancing in them, as if bringing the standing stones alive. And I always love going to have a bit of a dance around a standing stone or a stone circle. So when she was in Cornwall, she was trying to visit as many places such as these as she could. She could see that there was a link to the other world in these standing stones and megalithic sites. She was very interested in the White Goddess, and in that time that book had just come out by Robert Graves. Or was it Rupert Graves? Anyway, his book had come out, and he'd also been talking about other things like the Celtic tree alphabet and the nature of the goddess, which Ithell was very influenced by. She was very into this, what we would now call the divine feminine. She went to Brittany. I've been to Brittany, one of my favourite places, and I've travelled around on my motorbike looking at all the standing stones out there, and she did this fabulous painting of the island where the stone circle goes out into the sea. And it's always been a wonder of why is half the stone circle submerged in the sea. Was this built before the waters rose, or is it a sign that these people understood how water and land is linked? We don't really know. Nothing's really known about the standing stones and the stone circles or any of these megalithic sites. She was very into what she could find out about the Druids, looking up their texts when she could, and obviously there are no texts by the Druids, but in the Welsh archives there's the bard stories and the carrying-ons of them. And she became involved also in looking at the magical side of the numbers, geometry and such like. There was a guy who started a group called the Golden Section Order, and she got involved with that. I think it was Colin Murray who started that, which was also trying to look into the Celtic myths along with the old pagan myths of the ideas of Pan and the stories of Pan, the god Pan. So this is one of a little show just really explaining that there's many artists out there that were just as caught up in the megalithic mysteries as many of us are today, and we're all trying to understand what they were all about. So I raise my glass and doff my cap to the artwork of Ithell Colquhoun.